We recently went live covering the entirety of chapter 13 of Boruto TBV VORTEX. And honestly, the chapter was twice as good as I expected. The amount of information and plot building that was introduced in this chapter alone is groundbreaking. Hands down the most important chapter in the entire series, no question about it. In this chapter, we learn why everything that happened in the series so far happened, and we also learn more about the OTSUTSUKI and more importantly, SHIBAI. But as you can see from the title of the video, today we're going to talk about KASHIN KOJI, who in this chapter I believe became one of the most important characters in the entire Boruto series. Not because of his fighting ability or anything, although that does indeed help, but mostly because of his new awakened foresight Shinjutsu. Before we get into the video, I'm gonna kindly ask if you could leave a little quick like on the video. It not only shows me that you guys enjoy videos like this, but it also helps the video reach wider audiences and ultimately help grow the channel. Let's try to get around 500 likes for this one. Thanks so much. I appreciate you guys and girls so much you don't understand. But anyway, no more wasting time. Let's just get right into it, shall we? So in this chapter, we mainly got a flashback to Boruto and KASHIN KOJI's first contact after the omnipotence incident. Boruto was in trouble of getting found out by some Sunagakure grunts. It was then he found one of Koji's toads. Boruto touched the toad and it reverse summoned him back to one of Orochimaru's old hideouts. KASHIN KOJI most likely been using this hideout as a base for a very long time. He used his genjutsu on the entrances and exits to make finding the hideout nearly impossible. And in this conversation between Boruto and Koji, we learned the reason why 90% of the events in TBV VORTEX occurred. It turns out, what we learned from this chapter is that KASHIN KOJI has a Shinjutsu. The Shinjutsu is called 10 Directions. Okay, I'm making this video before the official chapter release, so the name of the Shinjutsu might not be called 10 Directions word by word, but you know what I'm talking about anyway. So don't be nitpicky. Just pretend whenever I say 10 Directions, I'm actually saying the real name of the Shinjutsu. But if the name is actually 10 Directions, just ignore everything I said for the past like 15 seconds or so. Since Koji was made using Shibai's DNA, he was able to manifest a Shinjutsu. Just because a model gives you Shibai cells doesn't mean you'll actually manifest one of Shibai's Shinjutsu. All that has to do with luck. That's why the likes of Delta and Boro didn't inherit any Shinjutsu. The only successful examples of this was Code inheriting the claw marks, Damon inheriting the reflection ability, Ada with her omnipotence ability, and now KASHIN KOJI. Now, 10 Directions is a Shinjutsu, another one of Shibai Otsutsuki's many cracked out, overpowered abilities. It basically allows the user to see almost everything in the future in different scenes. This ability allowed KASHIN KOJI to see how the battle ended between Naruto and the others versus Ishiki, as well as Ada casting omnipotence over the world. And more relevant to the story right now, the birth of the Shinju, as well as more future events that haven't even happened yet in the current timeline. Notice how I said timeline. That's a big part of this ability. KASHIN KOJI is not only able to see the future, but he's also able to see every possible future outcome that's associated with a certain event. He stated that our future isn't a straight path. Stories branch out according to specific circumstances and selections of others. In other words, a battle royale between fates. You ever played a butterfly effect game such as Until Dawn or even The Quarry? Every selection, every move, even an error of speech can change the outcome of your entire playthrough. These games usually have like several different endings you can achieve by choosing a different path each time. Either a big change or very minuscule. These different outcomes can be divided into what we call timelines, a chronological arrangement of events in the order of their occurrence. Koji explained that there even existed a timeline where Naruto was unalived by Ishiki and he succeeded in resurrecting inside Kawaki. And as you can guess, the planet ended up being destroyed by the divine tree that he planted. But obviously we don't have to worry about that anymore because it just didn't happen. But the odds of that outcome was very high according to Koji. Another example was back in chapter 78 where Kawaki sealed Naruto and Hinata in the Daikokuta dimension. In one of the timelines, Boruto was unalived by Kawaki. Sarada tried to step in to help, but she didn't stand a chance either. Ultimately, they were both destroyed. After this, there was no omnipotence arc or anything like that. Kawaki was helplessly defeated by Code in the future, and Boruto was devoured by the Ten Tails, again leading to the inevitable erasure of the planet. The Shinjutsu has a lot of pros and cons to it, but in my opinion, if executed correctly, it could be just what they need to save the planet. One of the biggest pros to having this ability is information. It'll help Boruto not be driven into a corner like during the Omnipotence arc. It'll also show KASHIN Koji a number of different outcomes associated with a certain event. The ability shouldn't be able to show them how to get to that outcome, but they can use context clues and hints to try to steer themselves toward that more favorable outcome. One of the most exciting aspects of this ability is Koji being able to see how strong Boruto is supposed to be in the future, and helping him get to that level way sooner than he's supposed to be. This way he can improve his training and make it more efficient. You can tell out of everything that Koji told Boruto, this was the one thing that caught his attention the most. He even says believe it, just like his pops. I just thought that was pretty cool. But anyways, this pretty much explains why it seems Boruto was a little stronger than what everyone expected, basically shocking everyone in the story. Heck, even we were a little surprised of how much Boruto improved in just 3 years. It's like he had a head start in his training, and rightfully so, he did. But it was only to ensure that Boruto was strong enough to get the best possible outcomes of the future. There was probably a timeline Koji seen that had Boruto struggling to fight Code back in Konoha, or even possibly lose to him just because of his lack of preparation, possibly not knowing how to perform the Rasengan Uzuhigo and Flying Raijin. But now that Boruto knows both of those techniques, and earlier than he was supposed to, it made the fight against Code a breeze. While I'm on the topic of Boruto versus Code, do you remember what Boruto said to Code in chapter 2? About the worst possible future? Well, it turns out this worst possible future was way worse than we thought. It is true, Koji knew about the Shinju before they even became a thing because of the 10 Direction Shinjutsu. And in these visions, he's seen the Thorn Soul, which is why he knew what it was before anyone else. So Boruto was trying to tell Code what would happen if his clawgrams continued to exist. And he had to do it without giving up too much information. Mostly information that will expose the fact that he has a secret alliance with someone and they have knowledge on future events. But even if Boruto told Code word for word what would happen in the future, I highly doubt Code would actually listen. What at first I thought was extensive research on the Ten Tails was actually just flat out foresight. What Koji told us what we can expect in the future is actually scary. He stated that after the Ten Tails breaks from Code's control, they attain new evolutions in the form of several humanoid Shinju with their own will. And apparently there is supposed to be like 400 of them in the future. So basically an entire army of enemies that are more or less on the level of JOUGAN attacking everyone. I mean, you can honestly say the planet is finished no matter how you look at it. Nobody would be able to outcome that. Not even if you gather the strongest shinobi in history and line them up side by side with the strongest version of Boruto. So in other words, what Koji's seen about the 400 Shinju, yeah, that absolutely cannot happen no matter what. I repeat, no matter what. But what makes matters even worse is that that's probably not even the worst event that they have to avoid. Because the last vision that Koji mentioned to Boruto is that he will be unalived by the leader of the Shinju, Jura. Now, whether this can be avoided isn't a question. Of course it can be avoided. You take precautionary measures such as strengthening Boruto's fighting abilities, as well as those around him, and yes, that includes Kawaki, as well as supply him with the proper information regarding the visions. You can alter your fate by leaning your eyes into a more favorable timeline. Now, let's rewind like 10 seconds here, because I didn't just say Kawaki has to get stronger just to protect Boruto from Jura. He has to get stronger, period. But more because he'll be the reason the world will come to an end if he remains how he is now. KASHIN Koji stated that he didn't want to say too much about it, but in many of the futures that he's seen, one thing for the most part stayed consistent, and that's Kawaki being preyed upon and devoured, thus leading to the God Tree's full development, ending the world. The future of Two Blue Vortex is very dark. No matter what outcome we get, we can be certain it won't come without any risk or sacrifices. But one thing is for certain, Boruto has to keep a close eye on Kawaki. It's mandatory for the survival of the planet, You either strengthen Kawaki to ensure he's powerful enough to protect himself and those close to him, or try your hardest to protect someone who's actively trying to destroy you and sabotage your every move, not being able to tell him what his own future entails. Boruto already said that unaliving Kawaki wasn't an option for him. I mean, obviously. So what's probably gonna happen is Kawaki just gets super strong like he appears to be at the end of 2 Blue Vortex. Throughout the story, you can find instances where Boruto reveals little nooks and crannies of his and Kashin Koji's plans. Boruto implying that he was too late when referring to the arrival of the Shinju, during his conversation with Shikamaru about the Shinju, or even more recently when he told Kawaki that the Thorn Soul could be used to save his master. Everything that Boruto did so far was to avoid a certain outcome or keep a bad situation from getting even worse. Basically just trying to get a better timeline that benefits him the most. And all of the moves Boruto made so far has revolved around Koji's ability to see into the future. Without this ability at their disposal, you can most likely say the future of the shinobi world is over. Which is why I believe Kashin Koji is probably the most important character at this point in the series behind Boruto. Now regarding Boruto, because there's still a giant elephant in the room here, we can't forget, he's supposed to have the ability of foresight from Momoshiki. For one, I just believe Koji's 10 direction Shinjutsu is way better than Boruto's foresight, because it not only gives him the ability to see played out scenes of the future instead of just fragments like Momoshiki's, it also gives him different possibilities, meaning he can just find a favorable outcome and strive towards that one. Something Momoshiki can't do. If he could, he would have most likely won the fight against Naruto, Sasuke, and Boruto. But his Shinjutsu is just lacking compared to Shibai's. And it makes sense. It's Shibai Otsutsuki. Okay, now thinking about it, this ability is very similar to the Almighty ability from Bleach. The only potential difference between these abilities is that Yhwach can use this ability during the heat of battle and alter the future on the fly, making him nearly invincible. But that's only because it hasn't been confirmed that Koji could use this ability during battle. I suspect that Shibai himself would be able to, but Koji more or less just found out about this ability not too long ago. So we still don't know his ceiling with mastering this ability. So I'll just leave it there for now. But on the bright side, all this fate talk has definitely just pushed my JOUGAN propaganda even further than before, giving Boruto the power to alter fate and push away darkness with his own 2 hands. But that's for another video. I won't dive too deep into that right now. But anyway, I hope you have a very solid understanding of how the 10 direction Shinjutsu works now. If you have any other questions regarding that, I'd be more than happy to answer any comments you may leave down below. If you enjoyed this video and look forward to seeing more like this, then just leave a quick like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss another video. We got so many new videos dropping this month, so make sure you're all locked into what's to come later. But without further ado, I'm gonna see y'all boys and girls in my next video, and I'm out. Peace.